Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the case of Bianca Roberson. Bianca Nicole Roberson was born on October 17, 1998, Pennsylvania. She excelled academically, graduating from Bayard Rustin High School in Westchester with straight A's. During her time at Rustin, Bianca was an active member of the Black Student Union, received multiple awards, and consistently made the honor roll throughout her senior year. She earned a 4-year merit scholarship to Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida, where she aimed to major in criminal justice and pursue a career as an FBI forensic agent. Throughout her life, Bianca was involved in various activities, including being a Girl Scout, cheerleader, and basketball player. She also took lessons in multiple instruments, including the flute, violin, clarinet, and guitar, and was a talented artist. Bianca lived with her mother and maternal grandmother, Josephine Perry, and was eager to experience the independence and challenges of dorm life. Tragically, Bianca's plans were cut short on June 28, 2017. While shopping at Walmart with her mother and grandmother, preparing for her move to Florida, Bianca and her family decided to return home separately, planning to meet up later. Her mother and grandmother had other errands to attend to, and Bianca headed home alone. She drove the familiar 10-mile route, but it would be her final car ride. About 10 minutes after leaving the Walmart parking lot, eyewitnesses who witnessed the accident began calling 911. Responding quickly, first responders rushed to the scene. The driver of the Chevy Malibu was Bianca Roberson. Unfortunately, paramedics were unable to save her. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Initial observations suggested that Bianca's head injuries were consistent with receiving a severe blow when the car veered off the road. Many drivers, who were on the highway at the time of the accident, pulled over near the scene, even before the police and ambulance arrived. Following interviews with eyewitnesses, the police uncovered a crucial detail. One witness reported that Bianca's vehicle left the road after colliding with a red pickup truck, which then sped away without stopping. Bianca's grandmother was unaware that the traffic jam she was stuck in was caused by the car accident involving her own granddaughter. By the time she got home, 2 police officers were already there to inform her of the tragic news that her granddaughter had lost her life in the accident. Michelle, Bianca's mother, was in shock. Losing a child is arguably the most painful experience a parent can go through. Michelle, a nurse from Delaware County, had previously endured the loss of her 22-year-old son, M.L. James Rowley, who died from a heart condition in 2013. Despite believing that time would ease her pain, the opposite happened. Her grief had intensified. Michelle became reclusive, refusing to leave her house, and spent most of her time crying uncontrollably. Michelle and Rodney Robertson divorced in 2006, but they learned to put their differences aside and become amicable co-parents, all thanks to their daughter Bianca. Rodney admitted that their divorce was unhappy, but when Bianca saw how he spoke to her mother, she made him see sense. The love they shared for Bianca helped to calm the situation. Bianca was a devoted family girl who especially loved being her father's daughter. Her father said she was more excited about fulfilling her dream of becoming an FBI forensic specialist than about leaving home. Bianca was focused on her future and wouldn't let anything stand in her way, her father said with pride. Bianca earned a 4-year merit scholarship to Jacksonville University, one of 4 schools she applied to and one of 3 that accepted her. She was also accepted into Coastal Carolina and the University of Georgia. Detectives asked for CCTV footage to confirm the account that Bianca's car had swerved off the road after colliding with a red pickup truck. If Bianca's death was due to a collision with another vehicle, then it wasn't just an accident, it was a criminal offense, and the police needed to identify the perpetrator. However, the truth they soon uncovered was even more astounding. During the autopsy, forensic specialists established that the cause of Bianca's death wasn't a car crash, but a bullet wound to the head. This revelation drastically altered everything. as what initially appeared to be an accident and subsequently a collision with a red pickup truck was in fact a deliberate murder. The detectives visited Bianca's family to inform them that her death was not accidental. This was a devastating blow, especially to her mother Michelle, who struggled to comprehend why someone would harm her daughter. The family couldn't think of anyone who might have a grudge against Bianca, as she got along with everyone. The Robertson family demanded answers, and investigators worked tirelessly to uncover the perpetrator behind Bianca's death. They examined the CCTV footage from Walmart, which Bianca and her family had visited on the day of her death, but found nothing suspicious. They dismissed the possibility that someone from Walmart had followed and shot Bianca, as there was no evidence of an altercation. The investigators suspected that the motive behind Bianca's death might have occurred while she was driving home along the highway. Bianca's mother recalled that they had packed all the bags into Bianca's car, a 2009 Chevy Malibu that the family had gifted her for her 16th birthday. According to her mother, Bianca didn't often ask for much, but when she did, it was something big, like a car. In fact, Bianca had chosen the car herself when she got her learner's permit. The detectives reviewed the traffic CCTV footage and confirmed Bianca's story about a conflict with the driver of a red pickup truck. The footage showed their cars driving side by side as they approached the merge point, suggesting the conflict may have arisen from one driver not yielding to the other. Given the outcome of this confrontation, the investigators suspected the pickup truck driver might have fired the fatal shot. However, the poor quality footage didn't reveal the license plates or the driver's face. Despite this, the pickup truck driver became the primary suspect in Bianca Roberson's death. The detectives had to identify this man, but all they had was a blurry image. None of Bianca's family members knew anyone who owned a red pickup truck. The police re-interviewed witnesses and 911 callers, but none of them saw the license plate. Friends and strangers of all ages have shown their support to the Robersons since Bianca's death. This outpouring of kindness began at a vigil held just 2 days after the tragedy. Among those who reached out were teachers who had known Bianca over the years. One educator shared with Michelle how Bianca had profoundly impacted her teaching approach. By analyzing footage from distant cameras, investigators determined the direction the pickup truck was heading after the crash. However, they needed a higher quality recording to identify the car's brand, model, and license plate. So police asked the media to share information about the red pickup truck, hoping the public could help identify its owner. After the incident, detectives learned the red pickup truck turned onto Poi Pike. They searched the area around houses and shops for cameras that might have captured the truck. They found one surveillance camera with good quality footage, which showed the pickup truck driving by about 5 minutes after witnesses reported the accident involving Bianca Roberson's car to 911. Although the footage did not show the license plate, it was unclear whether it was the same car or another matching the description. While investigators were searching for additional recordings and canvassing the area, a significant development occurred in the case. 2 days after the incident, a woman came forward, claiming to have seen the car they were searching for. What's more, she was able to describe the face of the person driving. According to her, a red pickup truck had cut her off, stopped at the Poi Pike intersection, and then turned left. This information was vital to the investigation, as it helped narrow down the search area. Furthermore, it indicated that the pickup truck from the footage was not the car they were looking for, but rather a similar-looking vehicle. The woman who contacted the police worked with a forensic artist to create a sketch of the suspect. She described the suspect as a white male, aged 25 to 35 years, with brown hair and a stubble beard. The police hoped that someone would recognize the person in the sketch and come forward with information. They showed the sketch to Bianca's family, but they did not recognize anyone who matched the description. The investigators considered the possibility that Bianca's death might have been a hate crime. They knew the red pickup truck had turned left at the intersection, so they canvassed the nearby establishments and homes, seeking a high-quality recording that could answer some of their questions. They soon found what they were looking for. A homeowner less than half a mile from the intersection provided a surveillance camera recording from their driveway. By estimating the time it would take to get from the crime scene to the camera, the police quickly identified the suspect's car. Although the footage was better quality than the previous recording, its angle prevented the officers from identifying the car or driver. Undeterred, the police continued their search for another recording from a closer camera. Fortunately, they found one, which revealed the car's distinctive features: a sticker on the right side window, a vertical dent on the passenger door, and hood damage. These characteristics would greatly simplify the search for the truck. To expedite the process, the police appealed to the public for help through the media, offering a $5,000 reward for information leading to the truck or its driver. The investigators were confident that someone would recognize this unique vehicle. 3 days after 18-year-old Bianca Roberson's death, a lawyer contacted the police station, stating that his client wanted to surrender, referencing his involvement in the incident that resulted in Bianca's death. This tragedy occurred on Wednesday at around 5:30 p.m. Bianca, a recent graduate of Westchester Ruston High School, was en route to Jacksonville University, with her entire summer and life ahead of her. She was driving along Route 100, a 2-lane highway, when she merged onto a section where the road narrows from 2 lanes to 1. This is a common merge that thousands of people in southeastern Pennsylvania make daily, usually without issue. However, on that fateful Wednesday, as Bianca was merging, a man in a red pickup truck also attempted to merge, and they jostled for position. The man, angered by the situation, pulled out a gun and shot Bianca in the head. The driver of the red pickup truck, 28-year-old David Desper from Pennsylvania, arrived at the police station with his lawyer. Although he refused to testify, he agreed to a search of his home and revealed the location of his pickup truck. Desper was arrested and charged with Bianca's murder. The police found the pickup truck at the location Desper provided, and the stickers on the side windows, damage, and rims confirmed it was the vehicle they were looking for. Additionally, during the search of Desper's home, investigators discovered the gun used to shoot Bianca in the head. While the police were confident they had found the perpetrator, the motive behind this senseless crime remained unclear. More than 800 grieving family members, friends, and community supporters attended Bianca's funeral service at St. Paul's Baptist Church in Westchester, a borough located 25 miles west of Philadelphia, on July 7th. A banner displayed inside the church during the ceremony read, "Patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control." Among those who paid tribute to Bianca were her brothers, officials from Bayard Rustin High School, where she had just graduated, the chief admissions officer at Jacksonville University, which she was to attend in the fall, and friends. The portrait that emerged was of an extraordinary young woman. Each speaker praised her brilliance and virtues. In his eulogy, Pastor Wayne Croft Sr. compared the shooter to George Zimmerman and Michael Dunn, who had killed black teenagers Trayvon Martin and Jordan Davis in Florida in 2012. Although Zimmerman was acquitted of murder in 2013, Dunn was convicted and sentenced to life plus 90 years in prison for shooting Jordan Davis. To the black community, whether Bianca's murder was driven by road rage or racism is irrelevant right now. All we know is that we've lost another brilliant young black star. Another good sister is gone, said the pastor. At the September 2018 trial, David Desper was asked to explain his motive for the crime. Instead of answering, he asked the Roberson family for forgiveness. The prosecutor argued that the traffic dispute occurred because Bianca failed to yield to Desper when the 2 lanes merged into a single lane. Then, from the passenger side window, Desper pulled the trigger. Recognizing the severity of his actions, Desper fled the scene, leaving his pickup truck with a friend in Pennsylvania, and attempted to escape to Delaware. However, after his sketch and the distinctive features of his pickup truck were broadcast in the news, he decided to hire a lawyer and surrender. The police investigated Desper's social media accounts and interviewed his friends, but found no evidence to suggest that the crime was motivated by bias. As a result, they did not charge Desper with a hate crime. According to District Attorney Hogan, there was no indication that this was a race crime or a hate crime. Many people disputed this assertion. Before sentencing, the defense portrayed Desper as harmless and immature for his age, a 28-year-old who enjoyed playing with cars in his free time. They described him as a big kid who had essentially handed the case to the government by turning himself in. According to the defense, Desper was driving home when another car suddenly approached him, startling him, and he fired the gun. Prosecutor Chris Miller disagreed, arguing that a 28-year-old man operating a vehicle with a loaded firearm cannot be considered a big kid. In a surprising twist, it was revealed that Desper's mother had shared a Facebook post about the police search for the man who murdered Bianca Roberson, only to later discover that the suspect was her own son. Wendy Desper expressed sympathy for Bianca's family and praised the victim, saying, "I'm sorry for what my son did," as her son sobbed in court. Rodney Robertson, overcome with emotion, addressed his daughter's killer. "I have some simple questions for you," he said through tears. "Why did you shoot my daughter, Bianca? Was it because of her youth, her race, her gender, or simply because you wanted to be first on the road? Was it just because you were having a bad day?" He continued, his voice cracking with grief. "All my dreams for Bianca were coming true until the day you took her life. Now, all I have left are my memories of her." David Desper had pleaded guilty to third-degree murder, and County Judge Anne Marie Wheatcraft sentenced him to 40 years in prison with the possibility of parole in 20 years. As she announced the sentence, Judge Wheatcraft wiped away her own tears, telling Desper, "I don't think you were afraid. I think you were driven by anger." The 20 to 40-year sentence was the maximum penalty for that grade of homicide. Desper later attempted to appeal the sentence, but his appeal was denied. Our world is full of wonderful places to relax. To get away from the hustle and bustle of daily life, each of you has taken a break. For some, a trip to a lakeside with tents and barbecues is enough, while others prefer to spend their free time in more exotic ways, traveling to distant countries. Anticipating exciting adventures and discoveries, many look forward to their journeys. However, in unfamiliar territories, the carefree tourist may encounter unexpected troubles and even dangers. For some, such leisure could end fatally. Despite its obviousness, the story we are going to discuss is shocking in its impunity and leniency. It's hard to believe, but when confronted with a crime, law enforcement did not bother to work out the theories. The investigation was effectively conducted by the victim's parents, journalists, and a private detective. Gathering information about the disappearance of 18-year-old Natalie Holloway was a painstaking process. Today, together with you, we will try to understand where the young woman disappeared to, who was suspected in her disappearance, and whether it was possible to punish the potential criminal. Aruba, an island located in the southern Caribbean Sea near the shores of Venezuela. This small, self-governing entity is part of the Netherlands and mainly thrives on tourism. The main attractions here include diving, windsurfing, and underwater tours of the coral reefs. The local recreation areas are known for their sand, which does not burn the feet even in the hottest weather. The local inhabitants, pink flamingos, enjoy wandering near the water in full view of the amazed public. It truly is a paradise. Unsurprisingly, it attracted a group of young people, graduates from Mountain Brook High School. On May 26, 2005, 124 students accompanied by 7 chaperones traveled to the island to celebrate the start of their adult lives. Since all were already 18 years old, the chaperones only nominally maintained order and discipline. It was well understood that the students had come to relax and have fun. The future college students stayed in cozy rooms at the Holiday Inn. They had access to beaches, palm trees, restaurants, and local entertainment venues. They fully enjoyed themselves, swimming in the ocean, sunbathing on the beach, dancing until dawn. Naturally, the fun was accompanied by alcoholic beverages and gambling. Thus, the youth spent 5 unforgettable days in Aruba. On May 30th, the day of their return, the only one who did not arrive at the national airport was Natalie Holloway. In the first hours, everyone searched for her. Her belongings, as well as her phone and passport, were found in the hotel. However, she was nowhere to be found. Her mother, Elizabeth Twitty, was the first to raise the alarm. She called one of the chaperones and reported that she could not get in touch with her daughter. Later, the woman recalled that at that moment, her heart sensed something was wrong. Her daughter was obedient and always stayed in touch. Moreover, she was very punctual. Therefore, her delay was a bad sign. Natalie's mother and stepfather decided to fly to Aruba immediately to search for her. Upon arriving in Aruba, Elizabeth was able to find out much more information than the police did. The police seemed in no rush to start searching and ignored the worried mother's message. After all, cases like this are not rare, and authorities took it lightly. They stated that people often miss their planes or liners. Typically, they are found in a bar drinking Caribbean rum or in bed with a new acquaintance. Mrs. Twitty last heard that Natalie was seen on May 30th around 1:30 a.m. She left the bar accompanied by Gerard van der Sloot. The pair got into a car where 2 other young men were present and drove away. After that, she was not seen again. During the vacation, her daughter's group often frequented the Carlos and Charlie's nightclub and the associated casino. Known for their bad reputation, these establishments were quite popular. It was there that Natalie met local regular, 17-year-old Gerard, who offered her a drink. Afterwards, he invited her to see the lighthouse and the sharks living near it. She agreed. As they left the club, a silver Honda car with the Calpo brothers inside was waiting for them. 4 hours later, Elizabeth contacted the police again. This time, she had information that raised concerns. After that, the trio was detained. Initially, van der Sloot denied knowing Natalie, but later admitted he had indeed left the bar with her. According to him, they drove around for a bit, visited the beach, and later dropped her off near the hotel. The 18-year-old Deepak and 21-year-old Satish Kalpo confirmed their friend's account. It is worth noting, the young men were interrogated together, which seemed quite unprofessional from the law enforcement side. Later, their statements were repeatedly changed. Natalie was born on October 21, 1986, in Clinton, Mississippi. She was the eldest child of Elizabeth Ann and David Edward Holloway. Her father worked as an insurance agent, while her mother was a speech therapist. The parents loved each other dearly and had been together since their youth, but domestic life eventually took its toll on their marriage, and after 13 years, the couple divorced. Following the divorce, Natalie and her brother Matthew stayed with their mother. Despite this, Mr. Holloway did not lose contact with his family, supporting them emotionally and financially. In 2000, Elizabeth remarried to a businessman from Alabama named George Twitty, which brought Natalie to Mountain Brook. The move was smooth and painless. The children still saw their father frequently, visiting him during holidays. Natalie was very sociable, which made it easy for her to make new friends. Her family was quite devout, so they spent every Sunday in church. This deeply influenced Natalie's upbringing. Relatives remembered her as very kind and modest. She didn't attend parties or go on dates, even though she was quite popular. Her beauty was striking, and her smile radiant. At the same time, the young lady was an excellent student, engaged in dance, and participated in various clubs. She dreamed of pursuing a career in medicine and had chosen a local university where she hoped to receive a substantial scholarship. As can be seen, she had promising life prospects. At the time, she was especially excited about an upcoming trip. Although her parents were reluctant to let her go, she managed to persuade them. Unfortunately, what was meant to signify a new beginning for Natalie turned out to be the end of her life. Elizabeth maintained that her daughter was unlikely to trust a stranger, much less get into a car and go somewhere with him. It appeared that something had been slipped into her cocktail, clouding her judgment. Surveillance footage from the bar confirmed the mother's suspicions. On the night of May 29th to 30th, Natalie was sober enough. She was dancing and socializing, and her behavior was neither provocative nor compromising. However, after drinking a beverage offered by Joran, her gait and facial expression changed, suggesting she was indeed under the influence of some substance. The young woman's mother also spoke with the staff of Carlos and Charlie's. Employees spoke well of the young woman, which could not be said for van der Sloot. He was a person of interest. During his leisure time, he often behaved poorly, indulged in gambling, and consumed forbidden substances. At one of the hotels, he and his friends rented a room where they frequently invited foreign women. Everything that happened there, Joran secretly recorded on video and uploaded to the internet. Nonetheless, he was never held accountable for this. None of the charges against him ever went to court, and here's why. It turned out that Paulus van der Sloot, the young man's father, was a well-known lawyer aiming for a judgeship. Apparently, not only tourism, but also corruption thrived in Aruba. The outrageous incident caught the attention of not only the local community, but also American correspondents. Many news channels reported the incident, and some continued to monitor developments. Fearing a global scandal, the island authorities began extensive searches for the missing young woman. Alongside volunteers, divers and specially trained dogs were deployed. To expand the search area, the government even declared a public holiday for civil servants. Additionally, 50 Marines thoroughly combed the coastline. An airplane equipped with a thermal imaging camera scanned over 40 kilometers of terrain. The search for the young woman continued relentlessly, but Natalie seemed to have vanished. Soon after, David Holloway arrived in Aruba. He joined the investigation led by his ex-wife and journalists. Public pressure gradually increased. Moreover, it was discovered that the hotel's surveillance cameras did not capture the suspect's car on May 30th. There was no footage of the young woman entering the building, indicating that Joran and the Calpo brothers' statements were false. The police called them in for questioning again. This time, the younger van der Sloot unexpectedly remembered that he had dropped the young woman off not near the hotel, but a bit before reaching it, at a place without surveillance. He also added that he noticed a figure in black moving toward Natalie, apparently one of the Holiday Inn's security guards. On June 5th, the hotel security staff who were on duty that unfortunate night were detained. Investigators believed they might have intercepted the young woman along her way. On June 9th, detectives finally arrested the suspicious trio. Sharing a cell with the Calpo brothers, one of the security guards learned a crucial detail. Satish confessed to him that he and Deepak had lied to cover for their friend. In reality, they had left Joran alone with Natalie on the beach and had left themselves. The security guards were released home on June 13th. On June 17th, another suspect was detained, Steve Gregory Cruz, a DJ who handled music at yacht parties. Somehow, the police suspected his involvement in the young woman's disappearance. On June 22nd, Paulus van der Sloot was also brought in for questioning and was detained that same day. However, by June 26th, he was released along with Steve Cruz due to insufficient evidence. Days later, during another conversation, Joran offered a third explanation of the events. Learning that the Calpo brothers had told their version, he tried to shift the blame onto them. He reported that he had parted with Natalie near his home, and she had left with the brothers. However, his story was not taken seriously. In defense of Satish and Deepak, a lawyer provided a rebuttal. As a result, on July 4th, after a brief trial, the Calpo brothers were released. Meanwhile, the custody period for Joran van der Sloot was extended by another 2 months. All leads pointed to him, yet the police seemed blind. Little is known about the young man. Joran van der Sloot was born on August 6, 1987, in Arnhem, Netherlands. His father, Paulus van der Sloot, was a lawyer, and his mother, Anita van der Sloot Hugen, was an art teacher. Joran was one of 3 brothers in a large family. In 1990, the family moved to the island. From childhood, the boy was a good student and even excelled at the International School of Aruba. As he grew up, he became interested in soccer and tennis, even achieving some success in sports. He planned to attend St. Leo University in Florida in the future. He was closer to his father during his childhood, while his mother considered him an incorrigible liar, which resulted in a strained relationship between them. Anita, being a creative spirit, valued true virtues in people and was very disappointed that she could not instill them in Joran. She also remembered that he grew up rebellious and often ran away from home. Over time, he fell in with a bad crowd and developed a penchant for gambling. However, he appeared differently in front of friends. He presented himself as cool and fearless. Even one of Natalie's friends mentioned that Joran made a good impression when they met. At first glance, he did not arouse suspicion, which is why Natalie was easily left alone with him. Locals were wary of the young man. They believed such permissiveness would not lead to anything good. Yet, he was popular with the girls, which he often took advantage of. Overall, the young man elicited mixed opinions from different people. While the investigation into the suspects was ongoing, the search for Natalie continued. U.S. authorities got involved. They couldn't directly conduct their own investigation, but closely monitored the progress and provided substantial financial support to help find the American citizen. The Aruban authorities were not fond of the scrutiny, but were willing to accept the funding. The Holloway family was desperate. In hopes of finding their daughter alive, they announced a monetary reward. Initially, the amount was $50,000. As hope dwindled, the reward increased to $1 million. Additionally, $100,000 was offered for information leading to the location of her remains, which later increased to $250,000. During this time, the investigation hit several dead ends. However, after the reward announcement, new witnesses emerged. One claimed to have seen Joran with the Calpo brothers at a local night spot between 2:30 and 3 a.m. Another witness claimed to have seen several suspicious men hiding a woman's body at a dump on the afternoon of May 30th. Yet, these statements led the investigation astray. After numerous checks, their claims were not corroborated. On August 26th, the police once again detained the Calpo brothers and another young man. However, these actions were unrelated to the case. The arrest of these young men was more about intimidation and an attempt to get them to talk. Ultimately, on September 3, 2005, all four were released on bail. A week and a half later, the court removed all restrictions and prohibitions, as none provided any substantial leads to the investigation. Overall, Joran van der Sloot spent about 3 months in custody. Once free, he reveled in the notoriety. Most would shy away from the heightened public interest, but Joran eagerly gave interviews and appeared on TV shows. According to his accounts, after meeting Natalie Holloway, she behaved flirtatiously. He claimed she offered intimacy, but he declined due to lack of contraception. On one show, the host asked, "Why should we believe you?" In response, Joran threw a glass at the interviewer, showcasing his impulsiveness and aggression to the world. It seemed very possible that Natalie could have been a victim of such an uncontrollable burst of anger. The journalist, who was the target of Joran's glass, harbored a grudge and did not forgive his rude behavior. With his help, a bug was placed in one of Joran's friend's cars. Eventually, intriguing information was obtained. The younger van der Sloot confessed to witnessing Natalie's death. He claimed they had indeed been intimate on the beach, but afterward, something happened to her. She started shaking and lost consciousness. He tried to revive her, even performed CPR, but sadly, she passed away without regaining consciousness. Consequently, Joran and a friend took her body out to sea and disposed of it. It was a sensational confession, yet once again, he managed to evade the consequences. After the recording was played during an evening show, he quickly recalibrated. Joran contacted another show's organizers and issued a denial, explaining that he had only told his friend what he wanted to hear. In April 2007, van der Sloot released a book titled The Case of Natalie Holloway, My Own Account of Her Disappearance in Aruba, co-written with a Dutch journalist. In the 351-page book, he presented his perspective on the situation and apologized to the missing girl's family. In his narrative, he continued to assert his stance. By this time, the investigation and official search efforts had nearly ceased. In 2008, Aruban authorities announced 2 new witnesses in the case. The first witness reported seeing Joran and his father around 4 a.m. on May 30th, 2005, on the beach near the Holiday Inn. The younger Vandersloot appeared disheveled, shirtless, wearing wet pants and one shoe. According to the Observer, the young man ran toward a snack bar, but just 10 minutes later, the father and son were seen arguing in a car before driving away together. The witness's statement was checked, and Paulus Vandersloot had an alibi for the night of Natalie's disappearance. The second piece of information came from Joran's former girlfriend. She recalled that he once offhandedly remarked, "Who knows? Maybe you're sitting next to someone you don't really know. Someone who could easily dispose of another person's body." However, this was hardly a solid lead, as the young man was known for his lies and exaggerations. Amid these developments, Joran and the Calpo brothers were detained a few more times, but were eventually released after each questioning. Seeing no breakthrough in the investigation, the Holloway family hired a private investigator, Tim Miller, who, along with Natalie's father, interviewed local residents and searched the entire landfill. During this time, they discovered numerous oversights by the island's police, including failure to interview Natalie's classmates or even her hotel room neighbors. It was later discovered that someone used Natalie's electronic room key several times on the night of her disappearance. It was also unusual that she had left behind her mobile phone, a rare and expensive item back in 2005. A male DNA was found on her toothbrush after examining her personal belongings. Mr. Miller's involvement proved that the Arabin authorities had been negligent in their investigation. Paulus Vandersloot never achieved his ambition to become a judge. He succumbed to the immense shame and stress and died from a heart attack in February 2010. After burying his father, Joran took another appalling step. He contacted Mr. Holloway, offering to reveal the truth for a reward of $250,000. He framed his blackmail and extortion as a desire to help and ease his conscience. The family clung to this new opportunity. Subsequently, the family's lawyer, John Kelly, met with Joran in Aruba. To ensure the meeting, they paid him an advance of $25,000. When asked by the lawyer what would happen if they didn't pay, Joran responded, "You could wait another 5 years." After receiving the payment, Vandersloot provided a new version of events and showed the location of the remains. According to him, Natalie did not want intimacy and desperately resisted. Enraged, he pushed her hard. She lost her balance, fell, and her head struck a rock, causing her to lose consciousness. He then buried her body in a building foundation. Armed with this new information, Elizabeth Twitty contacted the police. Checking his claims was straightforward. The house Joran pointed to had long been built, and its foundation was fully set at the time of Natalie's disappearance. Consequently, the Arabin police stated that his testimony was not enough to warrant an arrest. Everyone concluded that this was just another lie from Vandersloot. After obtaining the money, the fraudster fled to Peru. However, the story does not end there. Unfortunately, the consequences did not catch up with him immediately. On June 1st, 2010, in a hotel room in Lima, Peru, the body of 21-year-old Stephanie Tatiana Flores Ramirez was discovered. She had been severely beaten, and the cause of her death was determined to be a neck fracture. The victim's father was a well-known businessman and a former Formula One racer, which led to significant media coverage of Stephanie's death. Surveillance cameras quickly helped identify the criminal. Soon after, he was arrested and taken to the police station. The perpetrator was none other than 22-year-old Joran Vandersloot. He explained that he had met the young woman at the Atlantic City Casino on May 30th. They spent some time playing poker and then decided to continue their acquaintance in his hotel room, where they played at an online casino. When Joran went to the bathroom, Stephanie accessed his laptop. There, she learned that her new acquaintance was suspected in the death of Natalie Holloway. Frightened and wanting to leave, Stephanie was stopped by Joran, who realized what had alarmed her. The event enraged him, and he struck Stephanie. He continued to attack her until he was certain she had died. Afterwards, he took a shower and left. Before departing, he asked the staff not to disturb his companion, claiming she was sleeping. Her body was discovered 3 days later. On June 3rd, Vandersloot was captured on his way to Chile. By the 4th day of his arrest, he confessed to the crime. The news shocked residents in the U.S., especially as it occurred exactly 5 years after Natalie's disappearance. Elizabeth Twitty expressed her grief, noting that justice had finally been served, albeit at the cost of another life. On January 11, 2012, Joran van der Sloot was sentenced to 28 years in prison for the premeditated crime against Stephanie Flores Ramirez. He was also ordered to pay $75,000 in compensation to the Ramirez family. Initially, he was held at Piedras Gordas prison. In 2014, he was transferred to Chalapalca prison. During this time, Joran married a Peruvian woman whom he had met in 2010 when she visited another inmate. She claimed that her husband had changed significantly during their time together, being attentive and gentle on their dates. However, it appears she was sadly mistaken. Joran was using her for his own purposes and never showed any signs of remorse or guilt for his actions while incarcerated. In June 2011, David Holloway filed a petition in an Alabama court to have Natalie declared legally deceased. Natalie's mother stated that she would oppose this, still hoping that someday Joran would confess to the crime and face trial. The hearing was held twice. Judge Alan King stated that all legal requirements for declaring Natalie's death had been met, and on January 12, 2012, he issued a ruling in favor of the declaration. On June 8, 2023, van der Sloot was extradited to the United States and placed in Hoover City Jail in Alabama. The following day, he was charged with extortion and wire fraud, but he pleaded not guilty to all charges. On October 18, 2023, he entered a plea agreement, admitting to the murder of Natalie Holloway. He confessed that on the night of May 30, 2005, he fatally bludgeoned Natalie with a cinder block and then disposed of her body in the ocean to be consumed by sharks after she refused his advances. Unfortunately, the confession, made as part of the plea deal, could not be used in court. Ultimately, van der Sloot was sentenced to 20 years, which would run concurrently with his prison term in Peru. Natalie Holloway's disappearance remains one of the most notorious missing person cases in the U.S., and it is still an open case in Aruba. A series of cover-ups, corrupt deals, and bureaucratic delays effectively let the murder of an innocent young woman go unpunished, despite global attention to the investigation. Natalie Holloway became yet another victim of a sexual assault-based attack. Certainly one can debate the need for caution when meeting new people extensively, but this does not justify the criminal's actions or minimize them, nor should it allow a criminal to avoid punishment under any circumstances. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you before. The story began on a Saturday evening in July 2011, during a dance lesson when Dr. Joseph Saunier, a respected and wealthy pathologist, first met Michelle Tina. A prominent figure in his city and beyond, Joseph was a single man enjoying freedom, status, money, and a life of distinction. Michelle was nearly 10 years his junior, successful in her own right, and living a life of pleasure. Their meeting on the dance floor marked the beginning of what would become a passionate romance, a relationship that tragically ended in tears. At that moment, as their ideal partnership on the dance floor blossomed into tender love, no one could have foreseen the events that would follow. Dr. Joseph Saunier's biography before meeting Michelle is filled with both joys and tragedies. Born in 1955 into a well-regarded medical family in Shreveport, Louisiana, he aspired from childhood to continue his family's legacy and become a doctor. With remarkable abilities, young Joseph earned a Bachelor of Science in Medical Science from Louisiana State University, LSU, in Baton Rouge in 1976. He then pursued further studies at LSU in Shreveport while commencing work at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas. Balancing university studies with work commitments skillfully, Joseph aimed to achieve exceptional professionalism in his chosen field. Constantly taking on additional workloads at university and honing his practical knowledge at the hospital, he caught the attention of the management for his dedication and proficiency. In his final year of training, Joseph was appointed chief resident. Upon completing his studies, Dr. Saunier chose to specialize in pathologic anatomy and later became an esteemed pathologist and laboratory director in Lubbock, Texas. Tragically marked by personal loss, Dr. Saunier endured the end of a 27-year marriage, a union he had believed to be happy, when his wife fell in love with another man. Demonstrating strong character and nobility, Joseph accepted her choice and agreed to divorce her. Even though this phase was challenging for him, both personally and professionally, Dr. Saunier maintained his reputation for integrity and responsibility throughout his career and life endeavors. After the divorce, he kept a very warm relationship with Becky and continued to support his two sons. He showed resilience and strength of character. When Becky died 2 years later at the hands of her new husband Joseph, he was shocked by the heinous death of his former spouse. Once again, he experienced a wave of grief and loss, repeatedly recalling the family years gone by and mourning the loss. However, the doctor remained a pillar for the family. He took over all the organizational issues and funeral expenses immediately, helping his sons survive the trauma. The children later admitted that it was his support that helped each of them overcome the pain. The tragedy left a deep mark on Joseph's heart. For a while, he fully devoted himself to work and raising his two sons. Later, the grief he experienced led to a reassessment of life. The man decided to start a new personal chapter in a new city and with a new woman. In 2007, Dr. Saunier moved with his sons from Dallas to Lubbock, Texas, where he accepted a position as chief pathologist at Covenant Health System. Feeling the need for something fresh to fill the void inside him, Joseph enrolled in a local dance studio. He enjoyed those classes also because it was where he met different women. A couple of times, he even tried, unsuccessfully, to build relationships with his dance partners. Then one warm summer evening, Michelle Tina appeared at the dance class. An elegant, graceful woman with a sense of humor and lively eyes attracted Dr. Saunier's attention instantly. Her smile lit up the room and Joseph realized she was exactly who he had been looking for. Michelle also noticed this confident and respectful man moving deftly on the dance floor. She was 47 and Joseph was 57 when they paired up perfectly in dance. With each passing session, they realized they were growing closer. Dr. Saunier suggested dating, and Michelle agreed. Thus began what seemed then like a happy new chapter in both their lives. Michelle had an attractive, innate charm that had such a strong influence on men that they were willing to change their lives for her, even destroy marriages or commit criminal acts for her satisfaction. Rochelle was one of those women possessing a distinct magnetism that naturally draws attention and ignites passion. In reality, both were embarking on new lives with fresh starts after personal romantic upheavals. Departing from Amarillo, Dr. Saunier's new partner was fleeing the fear and anxiety linked with Mike Dixon, owner of a private clinic specializing in plastic surgery and cosmetology. The woman met Mike in 2008 when she visited his clinic for Botox injections. Initially, their interactions were strictly friendly. However, what began as light flirtation soon evolved into a romance. Rochelle was a free, accomplished woman who had built a successful career as an executive in the NFL and did not need anything. Her 4 children were grown, and she owed no one anything. In contrast, Mike was bound by marriage commitments. The plastic surgeon began leading a double life, which came to light a few months later when his wife discovered the affair and filed for divorce after 20 years of marriage. Mike was so captivated by Rochelle that he almost didn't realize how significant a stage of his life was ending. He decisively separated from his wife for Rochelle. Interestingly, Rochelle never intended to marry Mike. She sought only joy and ease from the relationship. The affair required Rochelle to be equally obsessed with her partner, which did not align with her expectations. Unable to get the attention he desired, Mike attempted to pressure Rochelle, a tactic that only drove her away. Recognizing his manipulative tactics and desire to control her life entirely, the young woman decided to part ways with the plastic surgeon. By 2010, their paths had diverged significantly. Nonetheless, even after their breakup, Mike persistently pursued Rochelle, urging her to return. This behavior compelled Rochelle to move away, to vanish from his sight, and free herself from his oppressive influence. This is how Rochelle found herself in Lek. Dr. Saunier and Rochelle quickly bonded. Their relationship gradually blossomed into genuine love. Dr. Sonier's relatives warmly accepted Rochelle and celebrated the partnership's positive impact on Joseph's life. He spared no expense for her, showering her with gifts, inviting her to elite restaurants and private clubs within the city, and even taking her on trips together. After Joseph realized he had finally found a woman he was ready to spend his life with, he took her to Los. In the presence of his entire family, he proposed. At that moment, Rochelle was 47 years old and was absolutely enamored with her new partner. Her social media pages were almost daily filled with love declarations to Joseph. Naturally, Mike Dixon couldn't help but notice these posts. The former lover was emotionally devastated to learn that Rochelle not only had a new man, but also openly confessed her love for him and intended to marry him. He understood that winning back his old flame would be impossible. Despite this realization, he attempted to propose a renewed arrangement where they would at least become lovers again. However, Rochelle firmly rejected the notion and informed Joseph about the incident. Soon after, the couple began to feel as though they were being watched. At one point, they even noticed something resembling a camera flash through their backyard window, but didn't give it much thought, not fully grasping the potential seriousness of the situation. Things took a dire turn on July 11, 2012. A landscaper arrived at Joseph's home to discuss an upcoming project and discovered an open door when trying to contact him. Assuming Joseph might not hear him, he entered the house and found it in disarray. Most concerning was a bullet hole near the front door, suggesting an intruder may have been involved. The landscaper cautiously ventured further into the home in search of Joseph, and then checked the garage. There he found Joseph's son lying lifeless in a pool of blood with no signs of life. His body showed evidence of both stabbing and gunshot wounds. Concluding that the perpetrator might still be nearby, the landscape designer immediately exited the house and called for help. At 2:48 p.m. that day, police received a call and dispatched several patrol cars to the scene immediately. Arriving officers identified the victim as Joseph Sonier, a 57-year-old pathologist. Medical personnel on site confirmed his death. The incident profoundly shocked the public, as it occurred in one of the city's most peaceful, safe, and upscale neighborhoods with virtually no crime history. Dr. Sonier, a well-regarded member of his profession, was known for his calm demeanor and kindness, and had no known enemies who might wish him harm. Despite a broken window, it was clear this was not a robbery. Nothing was missing from the house. A bottle with its bottom shot off was found at the scene, likely used as an improvised silencer for a firearm. Shortly after discovering the scene, a forensic team arrived to collect evidence. The agent in charge appeared inexperienced, leaving several traces behind. DNA from the silencer and blood samples were sent to a lab for further testing. Neighbors told detectives they neither saw nor heard anything suspicious, and there were no CCTV cameras nearby. The investigation revealed that the perpetrator entered through a panoramic window overlooking the backyard, making his attack unpredictable. Inside the dining room, he confronted Dr. Sonier and began shooting. The wine bottle was probably used as a silencer during this time. Blood traces in the hallway suggested that Dr. Sonier was still alive after being shot. He moved to the garage where his attacker caught him and inflicted several stab wounds. An autopsy discovered 5 gunshot wounds and 11 stab wounds, indicating premeditated intent rather than a random act of violence. What remained unclear was who committed this heinous crime and their motive. The investigation focused on Dr. Sonier's close social circle. His fiancée recounted strange events in their lives in recent months before the tragedy. She believed Dr. Sonier had been stalked and mentioned seeing an unfamiliar person watching their home and windows. Michelle also described receiving persistent calls and texts before Dr. Sonier's death. Officers verified this information, but suspected these communications might have come from other women with whom Dr. Sonier appeared to have parallel relationships, since witnesses claimed he was in contact with several women simultaneously. Investigators inquired with Michelle to see if she was aware of the other women involved. She claimed she was unaware. Joseph's sons firmly refuted the notion that their father could have had mistresses, asserting that infidelity was contrary to his character. Nonetheless, investigators continued exploring a theory that jealousy might have motivated the crime. During the next interrogation, Richelle broke under pressure, cried, and admitted knowing several women who might be linked to the incident. She mentioned that numerous former girlfriends continued to stalk Joseph. He ignored these women, but they consistently displayed displeasure regarding his upcoming wedding. One such woman from Florida persistently called even after Dr. Sonier disclosed his serious relationship with Richelle. Another individual, a nurse and colleague of the pathologist, regularly reached out to him as well. A third woman, who had a daughter, sent a letter accusing Joseph of abandoning them shortly before his murder. In this same interview, Michelle mentioned Mike Dixon for the first time. Until now, she hadn't connected her and Joseph's surveillance to Mike. Since he had ceased all attention after her refusal to be his mistress, she assumed he had accepted her marriage and moved on with life. The police now had a potential suspect and sought to question Mike Dixon further. Mike willingly spoke with detectives and confessed that he had been deeply in love with Richelle, having even divorced his wife in pursuit of a future with her. The separation affected him greatly. He tried for a while to win Richelle back, but eventually accepted her decision. He then found someone new, a much younger medical student, who confirmed his alibi. He was at work during the crime and spent time with her afterward. Despite this lead, the investigation encountered several obstacles. All suspects, including Michelle herself, had solid alibis. Detectives attempted to identify possible enemies of the victim or individuals who might have had financial motives tied to his death, but faced challenges at every turn. No new figures emerged by the time the lab results were back. The situation seemed to hit a dead end. Unfortunately, the forensic results didn't add any clarity either. The DNA sample from the bottle didn't match the victim, and the police database couldn't identify whose DNA was found at the crime scene. Then, enforcement officials caught an unusual break. The police department received a call from Paul, an aspiring EMT from Amarillo. He shared that he was living with a buddy named Dave Shepard, who had recently confessed to committing a murder in Leck, and then attempted to take his own life but was saved. Paul provided detailed information given by a neighbor about the crime, including specifics known only to a select group of detectives, such as the use of a bottle muffler. Realizing that Shepard was indeed involved in the crime, officers pursued this lead. The caller claimed that Dave was just the perpetrator and that the mastermind behind the crime was an unknown doctor tied to plastic surgery. Immediately, officers started running a background check on this new suspect and discovered Shepard's violent criminal history. His record showed theft and hooliganism, but didn't include any major crimes. They identified him as divorced, unemployed, and involved in several theft incidents, one involving stealing $330,000 from a prominent businessman. Dave was brought in for questioning and soon started to confess. He confirmed that Mike Dixon had hired him for the crime. According to Dave, they met at a bar where both men were dealing with painful breakups with their partners. Under the influence of alcohol, their conversation took a turn into what became an established friendship. Mike Dixon shared his sad love story and complained about Richelle, who had left him and was now about to marry someone else. The man shared that he can't get over his former partner and is willing to do anything to get her back. Deciding that the only obstacle is Dr. Sonier, Mike and Dave devised a plan. However, their intentions, according to Dave, did not include murder. They merely wanted to slander the pathologist so that Richelle would leave him and return to Mike. First of all, they found women who were paid handsome sums of money, $1,000 each, to play the role of mistresses and pursue Dr. Sonier. Then came a letter from a woman with a child, claiming that Joseph had abandoned her. Dr. Sonier denied it each time, and Richelle believed him. It also turned out that the camera flash the couple had seen was the light from Dave's cell phone flashlight. He regularly drove to their house and pretended to conduct surveillance. Each such trip was financed by Mike Dixon, who handed out money for gas and related expenses. When spying and slander failed to separate the lovers, Mike set out to fix the problem in a more radical way. He confided in his friend that he wanted him to kill the pathologist. As payment, Dixon offered 3 silver bars totaling about $110,000. Dave agreed, with one of the bars given as a deposit. The hired killer immediately cashed it in at a pawn shop. According to Dave Shepard, when he arrived at Dr. Sunir's house, things got out of control. It was in shooting. "I got scared," Dave explained, and he started walking away down the hallway. "When I came to my senses from the shock, I shouted, 'Dr. Sunir, are you all right?' Hearing nothing back, I followed him into the garage where he was lying." Dave distinctly heard his last breath and bent down to check his pulse. There was no pulse. In his confession, Shepard claimed that he allegedly stabbed Joseph Sunir in an irrational and foolish attempt to cover up what he called involuntary manslaughter. "I stabbed him a couple times. I don't remember how many times. You say I stabbed 11 times? I had Dr. Sunir's phone in my hand and thought about dialing the emergency number for help, but didn't. Maybe that's why it happened 11 times. Mutilated the remains, then went to Mike's place where I got the rest of the bullion and tried to end my own life," said Dave, concerning agreeing to commit this crime. He did not fully grasp what he was agreeing to, and when he found himself in front of Joseph, he realized that he could not go through with the act. If not for an accidental gunshot, Dr. Sunir would still be alive today. The plastic surgeon was apprehended by police on the same day and charged with first-degree murder based on Dave's testimony and a comprehensive collection of other evidence, including compromising phone calls and text messages containing explicit confessions. During the first interview, detectives hoped to elicit a confession, but Mike Dixon resolutely denied everything, demanding legal representation. A lawsuit ensued. Dave Sheard, as part of a deal with the prosecutor, immediately pleaded guilty to his role as a hired criminal and waived the right to appeal his sentence. Consequently, instead of facing the death penalty, he received a life sentence without parole. Mike Dixon, against whom there was only circumstantial evidence, pleaded not guilty. In an unexpected turn during the trial, Dave, who was a key witness for the prosecution, testified that he committed the crime alone without Dixon's involvement. Under oath, he claimed that the silver bars were intended for investment in a business they had planned to start together. The jury could not reach a unanimous verdict, which led to a retrial being declared. In 2016, during the second trial, Dixon was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. However, an appeal filed by his lawyers resulted in the reversal of this judgment. Consequently, Dixon was released on bail set at $2 million. The fight for justice persisted as the prosecutor's office sought to have his sentence reinstated by the highest criminal court of the state. The prosecutor's motion, filed on February 11, 2019, was granted in April 2020. Subsequently, Dixon's bail was revoked and an arrest warrant issued again. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals reversed this lower court decision and reinstated Mike Dixon's sentence. It ruled that he must continue serving his life sentence without parole. Mike Dixon remains incarcerated in a prison in Texas. Dr. Joseph Sunir became entangled in this tragic series of events when he began dating Michelle in July 2011. She still regards him as the main love of her life and deeply regrets that she unknowingly led a criminal to such an honest and loving man.